Alright guys, welcome to GBM number 7. This is going to be our final presentation GBM. Thank you Braxton for quieting down. Yeah, so this is probably our most important GBM of the year. We have our faculty advisors here who will then be listening to your final presentations to show what you've done throughout the entire year. Without further ado, let's get started. This will be a big GBM.
Alright, so just going over the agenda for today, we're just going to have some introductions from ourselves. We'll have e-board and officer introductions at the start, and then each of the team introductions will occur during your actual presentations. Next, we'll jump into our presentations. We'll hear first from our Infinitum teams with their Epilepsy prediction and student health tracker, and then we'll hear from Astra and their Astra device. We'll have a brief intermission for you guys to get drinks or to just intermingle. And then we'll get our final two presentations from Terra with their aptly named robot, make a robot face, and Juvo's Knit Pro. Following that, we'll just have some updates for you guys. We're going to talk about t-shirts, some of the fun stuff associated with snipes for the year, as well as our elections and potluck. General presentation guidelines, we're going to have 15 minutes. I ask that you please be courteous and respect the time of the people who are presenting, so give them your full attention. And then we'll have 5 minutes for Q&A, and I encourage everybody to ask questions. This is our open floor. It's probably the last time that you'll hear from each of these teams. So if you have any questions, or if you have any nitpicks right before the competition, it might be helpful for you to voice those. We'd like to give a ginormous shout out to our faculty advisors for this year, as well as Professor McNair, who is super helpful in getting ID Pro up and running. I don't know if you guys would like to stand to be recognized or introduce yourselves. It's up to you. Okay, if not, just ginormous round of applause again. Thank you so much. All right, and then just introducing ourselves again for everybody.
Yeah. Hi guys, you probably already know me by now, but in the case that you've been living under the ground for quite a while, I'm Kevin. I'm an aerospace engineering math major, and I'm the president of Archimedes.
I'm Xander. I'm aerospace engineering and physics, and I'm the vice president.
Hey guys, I'm the external treasurer, AV.
Hey guys, Kyle, you're internal treasurer.
Hey, I'm Grant. I'm your secretary this year.
And we'd also like to thank our student advisors this year who have helped our teams along throughout this entire competition process. And we'd like them to introduce themselves in no particular order.
Hello, my name is Jung Min Hong. I'm a CS major. I am an advisor of Juvo. I do brain computer interface on the web research, although it's not formal.
Hey everyone, I'm Nidhi. I'm a sophomore. I'm double majoring in electrical and computer engineering, and I'm the Infinitum advisor for this year.
Hi guys, I'm Indu. I'm majoring in computer engineering, and I'm one of the Terra advisors this year.
Hey everyone, I'm Sophie. I'm also a sophomore majoring in computer engineering, one of the Terra advisors.
Hello, I'm Bella. I'm a sophomore, and I'm a physics major, and I'm one of the Astra advisors this year.
And 3 of our advisors could not be here. We have Lana, who's an Astra advisor. She's majoring in aerospace engineering and chemistry, and she's also our publicity officer. Ramsey also could not make it. Ramsey is majoring in building construction, also an Astra advisor. Last but not least, we have Helen Brown. Helen is a mechanical engineering major and IC major, and she is our Terra advisor. All right. We will now get into our final presentations. Infinitum, you are up first. Oops, sorry.
Hello, my name is Amin Harandi, and I'm part of the Epilepsy team on Infinitum.
Hi, I'm Reva Jade.
Hi, I'm Alicia Schaefer.
Hi, I'm Mon Patel.
I'm Samantha Gupta.
And I'm Owen Stark.
So if you weren't familiar, our Infinitum team is split into two. One team for the Student Health Tracker app, and the other team for the Epilepsy Prediction app. And we're both competing in the Microsoft Imagine Cup. And in this, it's like a global Microsoft-hosted competition where people from all around the world come to compete for the Imagine Cup. And we are both participating next year, actually, because of the age restrictions on the competition itself. So this is our epilepsy team going first. A general brief overview of our app is it's a prediction app for epilepsy. So when epilepsy occurs and when seizures happen, there's a slight anomaly in the brainwaves, and we can essentially see this and predict if a seizure is going to occur. So we're trying to make a mobile app that gets connected to a take-home EEG on your phone, and this will give early warning and management for people that are experiencing seizures so they can alert someone or they can get to somewhere safe. And this is what we did in the fall.
For our work in the fall, we took an initial deep dive into literary and research that's already available for us, and we also looked into EEG data as well as viable online data sets. So some of the top things we found from our research and kind of the best data sets that we could further use in our projects ourselves would be that we found a 5-minute prediction horizon for seizures. So this would basically mean that like within 5 minutes it could predict a seizure. And we found that it had 92% accuracy, which is really good and limits the false positives that we could potentially have, which would be a hazard for people with epilepsy. It would be a risk. So we also found that we had a 0.29 false positive rate, which is a little high. We're working on lowering that rate. Ideally, you want that number to be around 0.1. So as we're working through our data sets and cleaning our data, we're working on lowering that number a little bit more. And then finally, we found that it can predict seizures within about a 48-minute time frame, which is relatively good in terms of letting someone know and helping them get to safety in a viable time. We also reached out to some contacts during our first semester working on this project. We contacted someone in the nursing field, and they kind of gave us some information on epilepsy itself and what we should be looking for when we're tracking the data and what data is viable for hospitals specifically, because we're working on making our model and our app focus to help medical professionals as well as the patient side of things and make their life a little easier. So he gave us some information on what data should be collected from the model and what is helpful. We also had contact with someone with epilepsy and kind of got their side of things and like what they would like to see in our app, such as prediction time and all that sort of stuff. And then finally, we contacted the Gray UR Research Lab, which basically who has students working on a project with an EEG cap, and they were willing to work alongside us with our project to use their EEG cap for further research, and we were very pleased with that result, I would say. So finally, we also started our data cleaning process and looking into GitHub and React. We set up our GitHub database as well as started coding out in a little bit of React and learning the basics in that app because none of us had prior experience in it. And then this is just our initial Figma UI design and what we would preferably want our app to look like going forward.
Alright, so fall was basically our brainstorm, our dump session where we were trying to get all of our knowledge in, we were trying to figure out what was going on. And in spring we wanted to head in and basically just start sprinting. We wanted to start creating and having a product. We talked about how we're competing next year. Our timeline is that we have to have some sort of MVP, a minimum viable product, done by November. So our aim was to have something done by the end of this year so that we can spend summer developing it, the early first months of next year developing it, but we have our main product by the end of this year. So this is what we've done a little bit. So we've got our prototyping focus in the spring semester. So one thing that really changed up how we were working in the spring semester was we came in and we had to almost fully reevaluate our project. We had to pivot a little bit. We're still keeping almost the same base idea, but we're absolutely changing our user base. Our initial idea was we were going to make an application for medical professionals to be able to help patients who may have an upcoming seizure, but as we kept talking to people, as we kept talking to our contacts that we mentioned earlier, we realized that this was not super viable because people with epilepsy aren't going in to a hospital that often, and anything that needs to track seizures in real time just wouldn't work from the medical side. Also, HIPAA violations ended up being a big thing. So we absolutely switched our gears so that we had a very patient-centered, user-centered application. And with that in mind, we started beginning the back-end and the front-end development of the app. So we'll see later, but that changed how we structured our pages. We had a big focus on ease of use. We were talking to our contacts earlier, medical professionals sort of emphasized that they wanted an application that had a lot of powerful functionality and was really simple. And when we were talking about patients, they expressed like a big desire to have like a UI that's very intuitive, simple. And even though that applies to both medical professionals and patients, it's stronger for patients. So we started developing. We started looking at specifically what AI model we wanted to use and specifically how we wanted to build it, in addition to how are we actually going to dissect the information instead of just like theoretically. So we started working with a lot of actual libraries, components, frameworks. We tried out a few different databases or database frameworks. We used MongoDB. We used SQLite. We set up a Flask server. Our intention is to code the backend in Python and use a Flask server to connect our backend to our front end. We also began building our ML model, which is really exciting. We hit a training accuracy of 91.7%, which was really, really exciting with the data we had. And we had a really fun little mini deadline because we were going to the CAPIC conference in DC. So the CAPIC conference is basically just a computer science conference. It was hosted at George Washington University this year. It focuses on empowering women in technology. And so it was really, really cool to go up there. We got to present our student poster and look at a few cool talks. And hopefully a day in the life of that will be out on our Instagram soon. But that's pretty much what we were doing. And then this is pretty much some details about our model. We use a long short-term memory network, which we talked about earlier. What that does is basically, it lets you look at two different things. It lets you look at little mini sections in your EEG, and then it also lets you look at trends in the EEG as a whole. So that was really exciting. And then this is our current product, which we started coding out in React. So you saw our initial design in Figma. This is what we're doing right now. So our colors and our UI have changed a little bit, but we still have that same idea with 3 different main sections. Our final plan is to have a data collection, a data history, and a login page as our main components, and then different pages to just structure the rest of the web.
So this is a little bit on what's left before we do compete. With our model, we want to just be worried about overfitting and the computational power that we have. So if our product ends up being released for public use, then we just want to have more efficiency and just have more models as layers in the architecture. And another thing is that EEG caps are pretty bulky to use. So to use this app, in reality, you need to have an EEG cap connected to your phone. People don't want to do that all the time just because it's inconvenient to use. So in the end, we are working on the software side in hopes that later on in the future, this may cause some sort of boom in the hardware side to kind of pioneer more accessible EEG caps so that our app can be more easily used for people that are suffering from epilepsy. Some of our future plans include to integrate this with ECGs for a multimodal approach. This essentially is saying, hey, why don't we include things like abnormal heart rate into our model for a better prediction accuracy. And we want to finish our app development for the competition next semester. Thank you, that was it for the epilepsy team. Any questions?
I saw that you guys were worried about overfitting your data. Can you explain a little bit more about what that means?
Yes, so basically overfitting in a machine learning model is when you might not be training on enough data, or your machine learning model might be too strictly coded in a way so that it learns your data exactly, and so it's doing really well because it's memorized exactly what your data is doing, but that doesn't mean that it's actually really going to work on a new piece of data. So in our case, due to current computational limits, we're trying to get on the VTCS server for our machine learning model, but right now we're not on that server, which means that we're running things in separate places, and because of that, we weren't able to incorporate all of our data into our model. It was a smaller data set, so we're worried that with that smaller data set, it's memorizing the data set.
Yeah. Have you considered using the ARC, the Advanced Research Computer, in Togo's call? I believe it's a supercomputer that we have on campus.
We have not, but we will look into that. Yes. That would be very, very, very helpful because we have a lot more data we need to put in.
Absolutely.
So you said that when you were testing, you had a 91.7% accuracy for prediction. How did you get that value?
So basically, our machine learning model when you set up the machine learning model, that's our training accuracy. So basically, when our model is going through training and it's running the procedure, it sort of logs, in training, how many times has it had a false positive or a false negative. So the accuracy rate is how many times. I'm trying to remember the math in my head. The accuracy rate is what I believe how many times it correctly identifies correctly identifies a positive over how many actual positives there are. Sorry, I fully tripped up, but that's our accuracy metric.
As a follow-up question to that, how do false negatives factor into that calculation?
We actually do have, oh, that's where I messed up. That's our sensitivity calculation, what I just said. Our accuracy calculation is, sensitivity is false, true positives. I'm so sorry, I'm fully blanking on this right now. I swear I remembered what I was doing when I was coding it out, but our accuracy metric incorporates false negatives because looking at how many times a positive is a true positive.
Understood.
That's our accuracy metric.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much. It was great working with you all this year.
Hi everyone, so we're the Student Health Tracker app, and this is our showcase.
Sorry, these are just a couple pictures of our code, and we'll just start with fall development.
So when we were first trying to scope out our problem and what we would like to tackle, I think a big issue that for us as freshmen, everyone kind of gets the hokey plague or gets sick in their first semester of college, and so we wanted to kind of tackle that issue and do something in the health field. And so for that, we decided on a Student Health Tracker app. And so what this app would do is it would use data from students and their college towns. So for example, if I would go into the app and select the location of Blacksburg or Virginia Tech, I would be able to see how many COVID cases are there per day, how many flu cases are there per week. So that would kind of help me understand what's going around me and how to better take care of myself. And along with that, it would source data from your local college clinic and hospitals. For us, it would be Schiffert's and Velocity Care and the clinics around us. And so for this, it would also link you to nearby health treatment centers and clinics through our AI model as well. And with using AI in our app, we also wanted to give you a potential diagnosis. We are not claiming to give you a fully accurate diagnosis as a doctor, but what we would like to do is give you the top 2 diseases based on what's in your area, and then one solely based on your symptoms, because a lot of freshmen don't go to the clinic or don't go to the doctor, and so having an app on your phone would be a lot more useful in just kind of understanding that you should kind of go visit a doctor and take care of yourself. And so what we planned out for our app to have are a few features. So a few basic features we were looking into, again, just based on your location, what the illnesses are. You can gauge your symptoms, get nearby doctors and clinics, and you can also get at-home help suggestions. And along with this, you can manage your appointments, and if you allow to give your data, since this is personal information, you could track personal medications you take, health history, which would help add into the AI model to better personalize what it's giving you in that output. And potentially a Google form to provide a diagnosis. So that would feed back into our AI and our data that we have to help further clean that data. And a few other app features that we wanted just from the user side, easy registration and login, since we know we don't want to keep the app too complicated so that someone wouldn't want to use it. Or if people, for example, not in college towns wanted to use it and just wanted to have a very simple interface, have push notifications if there's a heavy increase or spike in, for example, COVID or the flu, so you get a notification about that. Along with that, just access to students' personal medical records if they allow, and just health education for preventative care. And then we started, Owen knows Flutter, but Mun and I are very new to Flutter and a few coding aspects. So what we did is we started learning Flutter, setting it up, and looking at code that other people have done just to kind of get an idea on how Flutter works. And along with this, we worked on the Figma design. This isn't fully how we would like our app to look like, but something that we were a little stumped on about was how many pages we would need in the app, what pages would be useful to users. So after kind of asking our friends and our family, we came up with a few key pages that we would like to include in the app. So one is an easy login page, and we made sure to include the terms and conditions since we didn't want to violate any HIPAA guidelines. And then a location selector, health history, and kind of a bar graph where you can select each bar and see if there are 5 cases of COVID, what's COVID exactly, how many cases there are, and just information about it. And then along with this, we have a kind of idea of what our AI model would look like, a notification center, and how that would look like as well. And then a location selector, health information page, and setting page. So again, this was just to kind of get an idea of what features we would like to have in our application.
And now we'll talk about the Spring development.
Sure. Yeah, so here's kind of what we originally built as our user flow diagram. So it took us a while to figure out kind of what technology we want to use, what we kind of wanted to actually do in the app. So we kind of settled on sticking with Supabase as our database. It also provided a serverless solution for us, so we didn't have to figure out, starting from scratch, having to get set up any AWS or anything like that. Alongside that, we picked Flutter, so that was kind of our decision for the front end. And yeah, pretty much this diagram just walks through our users' experience when they boot up the app, and then how they interact with it. Here's just a quick look at a little bit of code. It took us a good while to kind of make a fair bit of progress so everyone could work on the app themselves. So this is kind of just the main function where our app completely runs out of. And that's pretty significant for all of us so that we could actually all start working on coding it and make progress on actually fleshing out some of the pages. So here's kind of where we are now. I'm sorry the images are not the largest, but all these pages are things we actually have in app. So we have just some basic pages of data display. Alongside that, we have a functional chatbot, if you can see there. Alongside that, though the front end for it's not built it, we have a working disease predictor. That's just a simple GPT wrapper. So we send our information there and everything we have from our data to GPT, and we get a call back. And it works fairly well so far, but as we'll talk about later, that's kind of one of the things we want to improve.
And essentially, in that GPT model, we're basically feeding it our data set too, which we compiled by looking at 5 different online data sets that we found publicly available, because it was really hard to find medical data without any credentials, I guess. So we just found many different data sets online and then compiled them together. And then we did data cleaning and everything to get over 200 data points. And then we, after that, we even reached out to 3 different professionals in the health field to get more advice about that. And through them, we were able to find more data and even use that to in our data set. And this is Capwick. Both of the teams went to Capwick, and it was really nice. We got a lot of feedback. We were able to meet a lot of people, and there were also projects similar to ours. So we were able to learn from them and even get advice about like how to change our app or how to go about different problems that we were having. So that's our poster. I don't know if it's very small or if you guys can't see, but we have links and everything, and we did get a good amount of feedback.
So another big focus for us this semester was accessing the medical data that we need to build that AI model. And so for that focus, we really just talked to a lot of professionals. And so I think joining ID Pro was definitely a very big kind of jump for us. We were able to meet a lot more and also get feedback from a lot more people. So for example, we had a mid-semester kind of final essentially, where we presented to faculty and all of the students in our class. And through this, we actually got feedback from the professionals themselves, and also the students themselves connected us to a lot more medical professionals. For example, physician's assistants, doctors, and also more resources to gather data. So for example, something we did not think about at all were restaurant bookings are actually public. So you can see if someone is sick and why they're sick, and that's the reason they canceled their restaurant booking. So if we need temporary data to add for location-based, we can see which location has a restaurant that had these many cancellations because people were sick. So that's something that can at least help us kind of get that location feature in our data running. And we also met with a doctor, Dr. Chandan Gupta, and she gave us feedback regarding the feasibility of our app, especially relating to HIPAA and privacy constraints. And she told us that it is a possibility to gather the data. However, we have to figure out exactly from where, because not all places have data that's fully cleaned with their personal information cleaned out. So that's definitely an issue. And along with that, she gave us more aspects such as accounting for mental health. Substances is something that we didn't think about, which could relate to college students as well. And then along with ID Pro again, we connected with a physician's assistant, Miss Cindy, to gain more feedback and insight. And we got more resources such as health representatives, the Virginia Department of Health, and several data sets as well that will help us. And there's a large possibility that we will not be receiving data from Schifferts or local clinics, but hospitals is definitely the way to go, since there's a very bigger chance that they have data sets cleaned without people's name, age, and personal information. However, Schifferts and smaller clinics don't have that data set cleaned, and they wouldn't go out of their way to clean it for like a few teams like us. So that's definitely something. So I think hospitals is the way to go for us in terms of receiving the data.
So the remaining work is, so for now, our team is just trying to flush out more pages. And I don't know if you guys saw, but we built out like 5 pages. We have a fully functioning chatbot, and we're trying to work on the map feature, so where you can see, you'll have a map, and on the map, you'll just be able to like look around and see how many cases are going on. And that's like one of the biggest features that we're trying to work on. And we're just trying to flush out a few more pages. And then we're also trying to work on our MVP, like the other team. We're also trying to have the app done by the end of this year. And then next year we'll just be working on the ML model and trying to implement that. And then, like Sia said, we're trying to work on getting medical data. But again, we've been having a big problem with that because of HIPAA regulations. So we're still trying to figure that out. And then we have a follow-up meeting with one of the PAs that we met to get more feedback from her, because she gave us many like great like websites and everything to look at to get data from. And then just submit for a Magic Cup. So the takeaways for both the teams. I don't mind. So for our team, me personally, I learned Flutter communication and a lot of like just front end stuff, and then lessons learned. Water does not get cooler if you wait longer. I wrote that on there actually. So that was because our team waited a long time to start coding, because again it was just it was uncomfortable because we did not know Flutter initially. So I just learned that we just have to get started. So if you wait long enough, nothing's gonna change. And I guess I'll just pass it down.
I guess, as Mon said, we spend a lot of time kind of making mock apps and kind of outside of our own app, but once we got started, it all just kind of started clicking and things just started coming together.
Thanks for going down the line. Yeah, I don't know, I'd say one of the bigger lessons learned was a lot of the data stuff was a lot more problematic than we thought it would be, but we didn't think it'd be as easy as just send an email and data is gonna just magically appear, but it definitely took a lot more effort to try to gather a lot of actually great data than what's just publicly available.
And then my turn now. But I think one of the big things for me was learning that building a machine learning model also involves cleaning a lot of data, and that's the main thing. And that you don't get a fun little data set handed to you. Was a big technical skill, and how to figure that out was a big technical skill that I think we got to work on. A lesson learned for me was definitely start simple. I think we have sort of a little mini startup vibe going on here, and that means we have really big dreams. And that also means we go, oh, we're gonna do the big dream, and then we don't start coding. So I think setting up your plans that you're starting really simple has been a really big game changer for us.
I guess it's my turn. So I would say one of the biggest lessons learned for me personally was don't be afraid to be flexible. As mentioned earlier in our presentation, we had to pivot our idea from originally we were making an app for medical professionals, specifically for epilepsy, and it would be on their side of things, but we learned pretty quickly, actually, no, we didn't learn pretty quickly, that's probably one of the issues, but we learned that it just wasn't viable for us. We couldn't get data from them, and obviously they have to be protected and confidential with their clients' data. So it was hard for us to make an app for them that would meet all their requirements. So we had to pivot to something that is on the patient side of things. So we had to be very flexible with that. And our pivot happened pretty late in the game, around end of fall semester. So that was a struggle to kind of build off of that.
I just learned that it's hard to start from scratch.
Multiple challenges and moments, I guess. Okay. Again, because 2 of our team members were 17, and you have to be 18 to participate in Microsoft's Imagine Cup. So that's why we did not participate this year. We were supposed to participate this year, but again, because of the age restriction, we could not. And commitment. One of our team members had to drop out because of, I guess, just college. And yeah, it's just a lot of work, I guess. And anyone else got any notable moments?
Yeah, I mean, just to mention, Capwick was a really big moment for us because since kind of competition is so far away, it gave us a pretty big milestone to get to.
Yeah, back downhill again. Another issue we had was just there's a lot of options when you're doing anything, especially in the computer and technology field. Just sort of choose something was something we learned, because all of our options kind of put us in decision paralysis for a while. So just start building.
Yeah, I think we're good on the normal challenges. Unless anyone else has something to say. Okay, thank you so much. Any questions?
So I kind of have a question. Why did both teams choose healthcare and AI at topics? Was that just a coincidence, or did you feel like there was the most potential in that field?
So we actually looked at a lot of the winners for Microsoft Imagine Cup over the past years. A trend recently is that AI wins. No matter whatever wins has AI in it. And a lot of the bigger impact projects have been healthcare, and it's just easier to push out instead of doing something such as industry, which doesn't really have a notable valuable impact.
know you guys said you were looking at you looked at other Magic Cup teams in the past to get a reference for ones winning. I was curious if you guys looked at other teams that have done healthcare related things and how their approach was to getting around, not around HIPAA, but addressing the challenges that come with dealing with personal data like that. I was curious if you guys looked into how other teams might have addressed it or found their own way to work around that.
So a lot of teams address it differently. I know for one of the projects that won Imagine Cup in some of the past years actually had their app fully released to different countries, and doing this, all they did was just generalize their data and use anonymity.
So follow up on that, do they use clean data or they just use the data that these smaller clinics would give Carolyn and stuff, and they would just generalize that data?
So first off, they use clean data to start off. However, as they later on went on with it, they essentially put it into their terms and conditions, and when they put a check mark, they could take their data and just use it as anonymous data.
I was just curious about the chatbot with the health tracker team. How did you guys get that working?
I can talk about a little bit, Mike can talk about probably a little more for the front end. Frankly, Supabase makes it really easy to set up a chatbot. It's one of their more recent features. It's not exactly plug and play, it's not you can just click a few buttons. There's a good bit of setup still involved, but more or less they have it already built in. So basically I can just take the responses on both ends, and then we can just plug it into the front end that Mike created. The one thing we are looking at pivoting to is they just made a UI library for it. That might look a little better, so we might actually pivot to that too.
Yeah, again, so our main goal for our MVP is to create a chatbot using, so we'll feed GPT our database that we created and the different prompt that's provided from the user. So we just take the prompt and we created a custom GPT. So we just add both of that together and we just take the response and then we just take that from Supabase and then just show it in the front end.
According to recent research, the hallucination rates in OpenAI models is between 10 to 40% if high. So I want to ask, how are you going to deal with hallucination problems, especially in critical applications such as healthcare?
Yeah, so one thing, I don't think we touched on that well. This is kind of just a temporary solution, frankly. This is more just so we can show more what are actually going to look like with our MVP. We want to build out something fully custom that we're not going to have the issues like you're talking about, where obviously if we're trying to tell people diseases, we don't want it to be hallucinating frequently. So yeah, so that's kind of our solution. So we're trying to build out something fully custom, but for now, just because we want to get the in-app display working and to be somewhat-ish accurate for now, so we can have something to show. We're just using GPT to keep it pretty simple for now, if that makes sense.
So I have a question for both teams. What do these data points look like? What's the content of them, and how did you guys clean your data?
Okay. I can answer for our team, but so I just found a lot of data on Kaggle, and a lot of the points were just not there. For example, let's say you needed data for Blacksburg, or we needed data for a certain, let's say you need some data points just had age in them, so we had to remove all the ages, and some did not have, let's say for some reason, one of the data points was just null for some reason, so we had to clean those out, and I had to look over hundreds of rows of data and make sure that all of them were clean, and just kind of removing all the unnecessary part. That was how our team dealt with it.
Yeah, then I can grab that for our team. So a lot of our files are just EEG readings. So since an EEG reading is basically a line graph, it's just electricity level of numbers, a time series of numbers. And it's you're just getting 400, 500, 600, and there's almost no other, there's no demographic data or age data or anything like that. It's just numbers in a line. And then every file is sort of split. Usually it's split into either sections where you've got a pre-seizure period and a during seizure period, an after seizure, and a no seizure period. Or they're different files with that different information. So our model basically is just a classification model that works on classifying like an EEG into like before seizure, after seizure, and that's sort of what our process is based around. For cleaning the data, this was something that took a really crazy long time for us. We got a bunch of MATLAB files, and converting those into CSVs was like a really big and arduous process for no reason whatsoever. And I was like, oh, they both look like spreadsheets. No, apparently you have to do 200 different things. But for that, it was a lot of file conversion, getting things into the same format. It was, I'm so sorry, my allergies are killing me. But it was getting things into the same format. It was a lot of cleaning out outliers. We used clustering to try and find different outliers in our data and sort of pick them out. That's not a a workflow that we fully laid down, but it got us through some stuff. And then just taking out like little cells where we had random data or like letters or like NA, things like that.
Thank you guys so much.
Congratulations, Infinitum. That was amazing. I would like to also shout out Nidhi and Grant for all the great work that you've done supporting the two Infinitum teams. Congratulations. Next up, we have Team Astra with their Asada device. As before, you have 15 minutes and 5 minutes for questions.
Good morning, everyone. We are Team Astra, and this is our final presentation, a kind of overview of what we've all been working on as a team over the course of this year. So this is our team. My name is Aditya Banerjee.
My name is Devin Hopkowski.
My name is Evan Miller.
I'm Faith Pursley. I'm Riley O'Connor, and I'm Shalika Stormacore.
We're missing our final team member, Miso Brownbridge. So what are we doing this year? We're taking part in NASA's MicroGeneX Challenge, a set of challenges provided by NASA STEM team, and it takes place in around June in Houston, Texas at Johnson Space Center and the NBL at Houston, which is Buoyancy Laboratory by NASA. So each year NASA presents 3 to 4 challenges for teams to choose to participate in. This is an opportunity for college students to gain design experience and engineering experience, conduct STEM outreach, and form connections with the community that NASA provides with them. It's a generation of ideas to solve relevant issues for future NASA missions. So we chose Challenge 2 for this year, which was soft good attachment, which is that our goal was to design a manually operated device that attaches 2 pieces of soft goods together with at least 1 point of attachment, with also keeping a focus on the astronaut safety during the operation of the device. We had a few constraints, which was that the device must fit in a 1 foot by 1 foot box, weigh 5 pounds or less, and operate under 20 pounds or less of applied force. On the right side here, we have a testing rig image provided from NASA itself. This is essentially what we're going to be testing on in the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory.
So our solution to the soft good attachment challenge is our actuated soft good attachment device apparatus, or ASADA for short. ASADA works similar to a nail gun. So to operate it, the astronaut would grab the device with one hand by the handle and then press the front end of the device against the 2 overlapping pieces of soft good. They would then press down on the plunger, which would drive a nail through both layers of soft goods and attach them together. For additional attachment, there is a manual change system located on the right side of the device. This allows them to rotate the barrel and change to the next nail. ASADA is made up of multiple components, the main ones being the plunger, which is located on the back of the device and drives the nail through the soft goods, Then there's the safety mechanisms, which are made up of two parts, the button and the cover. This prevents the plunger from accidentally being depressed. There's also the manual change system, which connects to the barrel. This allows the astronaut to rotate the barrel and change to the next nail. And then there's finally their outer casing, which houses all of the inner components and also features an ergonomic handle, which allows the astronaut to hold onto the device for long periods of time. And here we have a short video of the device working. So as you can see, the plunger pushes forward, which will drive out air, and then the manual change system goes forward, which rotates the barrel and allows the astronaut to repeat the procedure.
So I'm going to talk about our fall development. So starting in September, after we all got accepted into Archimedes and got placed on the Astra team, we met each other, and in late September we determined the roles of each of the members. We began to brainstorm some preliminary ideas, and we started to draft our initial proposal for NASA, which was due at the end of October. Starting in October, we came up with the ASADA design, some sort of, or like a preliminary design of it with some different aspects to what you see now. And Devin designed some rudimentary CAD that we can showcase to NASA in our proposal. We also, like I said, we submitted and finished our proposal in October. And at the end of October into November, we participated in the 2024 Virginia Tech Science Festival. Starting in November, we refined the CAD that we had submitted with the proposal. I did some outreach at the high school that I went to, and I gave a presentation about ASADA, MicroGeneX, and Archimedes as a whole. And we also drafted a preliminary bill of materials that we needed to submit to NASA in the following year. And then in December into January, NASA approved our proposal, which meant that we were allowed to participate in the challenge and go to Houston in June. Faith did outreach at her high school, where she did something similar to what I did the month before. And then we finalized the materials list, and we began to research funding opportunities, and that came with ID Pro and SEC and other different outreach events. And then here's the initial CAD that we put in the proposal, and then here's some pictures of us at the Science Festival doing a straw rocket development and just talking about Archimedes and ASADA as a whole.
So for our spring development in January, we enrolled in ID Pro. We gained access to the lab, which proved to be really helpful to have all of our materials in one place, one common space for all of us to go to. It was also really helpful to have Atlas and Dr. McNair give us advice, give us feedback, and tell us about different resources that we have access to on campus. In January, we reviewed our feedback that we were given from NASA after we submitted our proposal. We implemented that into our CAD, into our design. We also completed our preliminary design review, and we got feedback from that as well and implemented some new things, new changes into our device. In February, we began ordering our materials. We were given a $300 budget from ID Pro, and then we found out we got $500 from NASA. So we submitted our material orders to those two places. We started meeting with our NASA faculty member, Mr. Horn. He is an alum at Virginia Tech, actually, and we meet with him every 2 or 3 weeks. We tell him how our process is going, how our testing is going, tell him the changes to our device, ask him questions. It's been really helpful to have someone to speak to at NASA. We began casting our initial plungers out of a hard polyurethane. We 3D printed a cylinder and then filled that with our silicone to create a silicone mold to then pour the hard polyurethane into. And we had some challenges with that. When we would pour the hard polyurethane, there would be holes in it where it would come out like a shell, like there would be no structure to it whatsoever. So we decided to change a few things. We made another mold out of silicone, and we decided to flip the silicone. Instead of it being from the base to the top of the plunger, we had it from the top to the base, and that proved more successful. We also, instead of measuring with volume, we measured with weight, and that helped a lot with the whole issue, I believe. And in March, we found out that we have access to a resin printer on campus, so we kind of scratched everything that had to do with hard polyurethane anyway. And we decided to 3D print a lot of our inner mechanisms with resin and our plunger with resin as well, and we've done some testing with that, and the resin has proved to be better than the hard polyurethane. In March, we also coiled several springs, calculated spring constants that would go around this thin part at the end of our plunger. We chose what parts of our TRR we were going to do. We worked on that over spring break so we could do something while we weren't all together. And then in April, we submitted our TRR. We're awaiting feedback right now. And then we did a lot of travel preparation. We booked our flights. We've been getting all of that into order. We created our final poster for ID Pro and for NASA. And then we have been going over our final iterations of our device, what we need to change, what we really need to work on, going over kind of our week by week, if not day by day, what we need to be doing, because we only have a month left. So we've been really trying to hone in on working every single day and making plans for that. So after our PDR, we made some design changes, like I said before. So for our plunger, instead of the base right here being a circular cross section, we have it as a square. So when it's inside of our device, it can't rotate, and the hole for the safety can't become misaligned. We also changed this base right here to be longer and more conical, so when the astronaut's holding it, it's less likely of a pinch point when they push it into the device. As for our RCS, our changing system, we had it be almost automatic when you push the plunger into the device, but the if you can, the like thin component was really flimsy. And we also thought that it would be better to do something manual so that the astronaut himself would have to change the barrel to rotate a new nail into place. It was an extra component of safety, if anything. Oh, yeah, you can show.
And this was the updated MCS design where it's now manually operated rather than anything else.
Some other components we changed. We made our design more ergonomic. Before it was very rectangular. Now we made the handle more ergonomic. We made like bumps for the fingers of the glove, and we also made the body of the device more slender so that it's not taking up space that it doesn't need to take up, since we do have a 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot cube to work with. We also changed our puncture, like our nail, our rivet. We originally wanted something that would puncture into the soft good and then split up, so if someone were like pull on it, it wouldn't be able to come out. But that was really difficult. We would almost have to make something like that. We wanted something more commercial, so we just tried with a sharp nail that had grooves on it, and when we tested it proved to work really well. You're able to shake it, it won't come out. When you pull on it, it's hard to come out. So we decided to go with that instead. It was just a lot easier for us to work with.
Okay, so as for our risk matrix, you can see the matrix right there, and it just shows you like the likelihood of something happening versus the consequence. So the main risks are like improper nail injection, and we mitigated that by making sure that the nail barrel is designed so that it can securely store the nails and conceal other sharp points. And then the second most one was pinch point, specifically related to the plunger. And essentially we made sure that the conical end of the plunger is designed to increase the space between the back of the device and the astronaut's glove so that it minimizes the pinch point. And we'll also make sure that it's labeled as a hazard area accordingly. Also, there's like structural and mechanical failure that could occur, but we made sure that the design is able to tolerate like stronger forces than it needs to so that this doesn't happen. There's also like the safety mechanism failure, which is essentially with the safety cap, but we made sure that the safety cap is designed so that it covers the safety button, and this will basically decrease the likelihood of the safety button being accidentally pushed. There's also stored energy, but we made sure to make sure that the spring constants and the stored energy, the potential stored energy had been calculated, and the device is able to tolerate the rapid release of the force. And the last one is just pinch point, specifically for the lever. But we made sure that we've given sufficient space between the lever and the slot so that the lever protrudes from the device and it decreases the ability of the glove getting caught. But essentially in the matrix, these are like the main 6 safety concerns that we identified, and we put them based on their likelihood and consequence, and then after mitigating the risk, we use the arrows to indicate where they would go to and how they transform. And then the evolution of our manufacturing plan. As we talked about, we made sure we were initially doing hard polyurethane plungers, but we realized that it didn't really work and we were using a silicone mold. But then we discovered 3D printing, resin printing. So then we ended up resin printing our plunger now. And we were also initially using a spring for our plunger to increase like the tension and make sure that there's more force. But after talking to our mentor, Atlas, we realized that it actually makes it so that we're losing energy rather than gaining energy. So we decided to take the spring out, and now we're just using just a plain plunger. And then on the bottom, the 2 images just show us trying to simulate the soft good that we're going to be puncturing through at NASA. And initially, it was a different type of soft good, but now they mailed us a version of their soft good because they ended up changing it recently. And we put it inside the embroidery loop so that we can simulate it being hella tight so that we can punch it through. Okay, and then as for testing, we recently started testing, and we did chlorine testing and puncturing testing. For chlorine, we have a bucket where we made our own chlorine water and trying to simulate the NBL, and we put rubber grommets and then ABS casing, nails, tactile tape, basically anything related to our device that will be going inside the NBL, just to make sure how it reacts with the chlorine and to make sure that it doesn't corrode. But we realized nothing happens, so we're chilling. And then as for puncturing, we've been placing the nails within our device and just using the plunger to push it into the embroidery loop thing that we created to make sure that our nails are actually puncturing. And this is where we realized that we needed to sharpen our nails, so now we're using sharpened nails.
So I'm going to be talking about our remaining work. So as if we've been doing testing, excuse me, we've realized that there's some design changes we need to make. So for example, we are going to fillet this connection point between the base and the handle. Just that way, there's no chance that this would accidentally snap off during testing. We're also going to add a hole at the bottom here for an attachment tether for the astronaut, so that way they can attach that to their suit. We also have decided, initially we wanted to add snaps on, so that way the 2 pieces of casing can be snapped together. However, we found that that was kind of hard to take apart and it was kind of breaking. So we've decided to move towards latches instead. So we will be putting latches on either side of the casing, and then they can be latched together. So that way the astronaut won't be interacting with trying to take the casing apart during testing. Just that way we can have access to the internal systems before testing in case we need to switch anything out. And so we need to add our holes for the screws to go into for the latches. And then, so that way these screws have something to screw into, we'll be putting small pieces of wood on the inside empty space that we currently have in the casing. We also, right now, our nails are just being placed inside the barrel. However, that's not safe at all. So we have decided to use grommets, which we were talking about, the rubber grommets, which will be going on the inside of each of the holes, and then the nail will be able to be inserted in the grommet and held in place and aligned, so that way then once the plunger pushes the nail out, it will be going in a straight trajectory. So we need to change our barrel to account for these grommets and the size of them, because right now our holes are very small for just the nail. We also are making our plunger slightly longer. We are making it about an inch longer because we don't have much room to work with, since it still has to fit within the 1 foot box. But this extra space will make sure that way there's even less of a chance for there to be a pinch point between the back of the device and the astronaut's glove when they push the plunger in. We also have a latch for this. Safety is on backwards at the moment, but the safety will latch on here, and that we need to make it more durable, because right now once you close it and then the first time you open it, you basically are just breaking the latch. So then we also are adjusting our lever. As you can see, this is kind of small right now for the astronaut to be pushing forward, especially when they have thick gloves on. So we are making this just like a flat extrusion, kind of like how we have here on the safety, so that way they can just push it forward. And then we also have inner railings on the inside where the plunger lays, and we need to make those thicker because right now they have broke after we've done puncturing tests, and so now the plunger doesn't go in a straight line consistently. And then as far as our design modifications, so now for our remaining testing, we are actually going to be doing underwater testing after this meeting to test just the functionality of how does this work right now, like underwater, how does that change? Do we need more force? How we can make that better? And then we'll be doing debris testing, where we'll just be putting it in some sand. Also making sure our safety latch latches when we want it to, and then can still be easily opened, and that the button is able to be engaged and disengaged, and that when the safety rod is inserted into the plunger is not moving when we don't want it to be. We'll also be doing testing for the intuitiveness of our device. So once we have our operation plan laid out, we'll be then having people who are unfamiliar with our device replicate being the astronaut and explain to them how they need to operate the device, just to make sure that it's clear, and then we can figure out how we can make things more clear before we go to the NBL. Also, finally making sure that all of our lubricants and epoxies don't corrode after being exposed to chlorine for a while, and then just continually doing more puncture testing, as we don't want the nail to not be able to puncture through the soft good and then just have a nail floating in the NBL. That would be absolute stop testing, which we want to mitigate. And then just finally, as we prepare for test week, we're going to write our operation plan, make sure we have backup parts to our plunger, our lever, our NCS, so that way we are prepared in case anything happens during travel or testing, sharpen our nails, so those are prepped, and then finally preparing for our TER, test readiness review, so that way that NASA engineers can make sure we are all good to go, and then also finally adding our labels for any potential hazards.
Alright, so some of the things we learned was the importance of iterative design and rapid prototyping. Some of us learned how to calculate the deflection point, specifically on our plunger here. We also learned how to brainstorm ideas that solve the challenge while also staying within the constrictions of the limitations from NASA. We learned how to identify different safety hazards, such as pinch points in our device and sharp points in the nails, and stored energy from springs. Throughout all of our deliverables, we also became better at technical writing. We also learned how to work together as a team and delegate different parts of the deliverables so we could get them done on time. Some of us learned how to calculate the optimal spring constant for our device, and we also learned how to balance an academic and design team schedule so we could get things done on time. Some of the important lessons we learned is time management, which is one of the most important aspects of prototyping with a deadline. We learned how to get the different parts of our design done on time for our deliverables. And we also learned how to navigate setbacks, which are out of our team's control, such as different libraries or workstations around campus not having the right 3D printer or filament for us. We learned how to continue working despite those setbacks. Then some of the notable moments was integrating into ID Pro. This became essential for our team's success as we were provided with a workspace so that we could rapidly prototype and store our materials. And we were also given a budget that allowed us to get more materials and form a better connection with our faculty advisors. Some of the challenges was making manufacturing progress while we were waiting for materials. It was difficult to make the final parts or components of our design without having the right things to make it with. And also having a lack of budget until very recently, until around February, when we were actually able to order materials. And then finally having the incorrect materials being ordered, which further delayed our progress. But overall, we would like to thank all the faculty advisors and everybody in Archimedes for all the help they've done throughout the school year, and we would not be here without your guys' support, so thank you.
So you guys, congratulations first of all. You guys mentioned that you had wood in your inside the casing to help join the two parts together. Have you tested the corrosion of wood inside the NBL or NBL simulated water?
We have not yet, but that's something we can easily do, is just put the pieces of wood that we got from Fifth right now and put them in our chlorine bucket.
Hypothetically, what happens if it does not meet your specs or meet your standards?
We will be finding some other sort of like bolt perhaps that we can put on the other side and like screw it in instead of wood.
I just wanted to get clarification. Do you guys still have a spring in your device or not? Because I saw like you were worried about stored energy, and then also you mentioned that you're taking it out just because it's unnecessary.
Yeah, so as of recently, we decided to take out the spring just because the only purpose the spring was serving was pushing the plunger back to the start position, which was, it required more energy to compress the spring, which we could have used that energy to project the nail. So it's completely out of our device at this point.
So the astronaut will just like reach in and like just pull it back?
Yes.
So I had a question with the same spring. So like if you're pulling it back, how do you guys make sure that the two materials are being attached? Like underwater, you guys are talking about how the force being applied has to be able to actually like pull the two materials together. So without the spring, have you guys seen a decrease in the amount of force being applied?
No, actually we've found that our force actually works better without the spring, that you're able to take all of that force and put it into the nail going through. And the nail doesn't get stuck at all, like between the plunger and the nail. So when it comes, pull the plunger back, there's rails on the inside, so that way the plunger stays in line. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So this potential energy from the spring, you were able to explain it. So does that not translate to like kinetic energy of the screw moving through the two materials?
I see what you're saying, but the way like the spring was is that we were simply just like compressing it, and so we were losing some of that energy when the plunger was going
When
forward.
you're compressing the screw with the materials, is that what's going on? Like, does it ever leave the spring? Does it keep touching the spring until the end? Sorry, I'm just trying to understand.
The screw does not touch the spring at all. Sorry, thank you.
Oh.
The screw does not touch the spring at all. The spring is essentially, well, I can't really open it up right now, but the spring was essentially in the inner in the railing, inside the railing, and it would go over. That's where it would be set, over here, and essentially its only purpose was to make sure that the plunger like bounces back to its original position after being pressed against the soft good, I guess. Because what we have is a soft good testing rig like this, and our flat surfaced device is placed just flat against the soft good. The nail is, again, in the barrel. There's no contact between the nail and the spring. The only contact is between the spring and the plunger. And having the spring there was not letting us apply as much force onto the plunger, as much as we wanted to, at least. It was stopping the nail from puncturing through the soft good.
Awesome. Thank you for the explanation.
Yeah,
Thanks for sticking with me though. Yeah.
it was like right through here,
Yeah, the spring stays here and the nail is here, so there's no like, yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
It's okay, it's time's up though.
Yeah. Would you like to go with that?
I was gonna ask, how close are you to your weight limit? That is a great question. My only thought was, if you add wood, it absorbs water, and so that would increase the weight.
Yes, luckily our device is pretty light right now because it's ABS filament, but that's definitely something.
Yeah, if you're light, you're good to go.
Right, our weight did increase a little bit after changing some of our internal components from ABS to the resin printed ones, but it's a risk we're willing to take because the resin printed ones have been working really well. So it's a wonderful idea, resource to have, I guess. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Team Astra. If you guys have any additional questions, feel free to ask them during intermission time or after your GPM. I'm sure that some members will be available. First and foremost, I would like to congratulate the plungers that Team Astra has been using. No more of those will be broken, I hope. Riley, I hope you've gotten past the breaking plunger space, right?
Yeah.
Awesome, all right. But most importantly, secondly and more importantly, congratulations to Team Astra. It looks like they're well on their way to showing off the device at Houston. So another round of applause for that. All right, it is now 11:11 a.m. Nice timing. We will be having a 15-minute intermission, kind of a quick break before we get started at, if I can do math, 11:27 a.m. with our second set of presentations. All right, a break. All right, guys, if we can head back to our seats. We are about to get started with our second segment of presentations. This segment will be slightly shorter than this last segment as we only had 2 teams, each of 20 minutes. As before, the 20 minutes consists of 15 minutes presentation, 5 minutes questions. All right, next up we have Team Terra. Team Terra, you have the stage.
Hello, we are Team Terra, and this is our final presentation. I am Destiny Cartagena.
I'm Hannah Longfellow.
I'm Byron Millett.
AKA Joe Byron.
I'm Rahul Jonah.
I'm Akanksha Patluri.
And I'm Gideon Laverne.
So these are some photos along the year and some from our photo shoot. So Terra is participating in the ASME Student Design Competition. Basically, every year we are tasked with a challenge that includes robotics, and this year's competition, we are designing a robot that efficiently sorts ball bearings. Specifically, 2 different sizes, 3 different material, and in total 6 categories. That means 40 total ball bearings within 10 minutes, and we plan to compete this next weekend.
So starting with the work we did over the fall, these are our initial thoughts, just laid out in a diagram. So we had lots of ideas, and we had to focus on 2 main things, which were the sorting system and delivery. So under the sorting system, we have material and size sorting for the ball bearings, and under delivery, we have to worry about transportation and packaging stations.
So to start off, we did a ton of research just about the competition and about the challenge. So the main aspect of the challenge is that there are the different ball bearings, as stated before, and they're different materials. So the materials are plastic, nylon, steel, and brass. And each of these ball bearings has a different magnetic property, different color. So we were looking at the kinds of sensors that we could use to detect that, to differentiate between the kinds of ball bearings.
And some of the sensors that we researched are listed here, but we spent the majority of our time researching the color sensor, inductive proximity sensor, and it's got the crankshaft position sensor. It's an auto mechanic part, but it's essentially just a Hall effect sensor. So starting off with the color sensor, we spent a lot of time researching that, and we, in the process, discovered that it communicates on an I2C serial bus. So we spent a lot of time with that and the Arduino, and we had to learn a lot of that. It posed a huge challenge.
And at the time, it seemed like our best option because the other sensors were either too expensive or you would need a combination of sensors in order to sort materials. But with we had hoped that using a color sensor would allow you to only have a single sensor that could distinguish all three materials and in the right orientation, and it would just be easy and done. But in order to actually learn about how it worked and manage, it ran at a 3.3 logic voltage, which we didn't know, versus a 5 volt logic voltage operating on the Arduino. So we had a couple meetings with a few ECE department members, such as Arthur Ball, to help us with that. Although after a long enough thought, we had to just say we weren't making progress and we moved forward with a few other sensors. So the inductive proximity sensor, it essentially, using a magnetic field, it induces eddy currents inside of conductive materials, and that eddy current, those eddy currents can be sensed and detected as a signal to a GPIO pin on an Arduino. And then the crankshaft sensor is just a mounted configuration of a Hall effect sensor, if you are familiar, which can detect the presence of a magnetic field through an object. So it detects ferromagnetic objects such as steel from brass. So the two sensors sort plastic versus chrome and brass, and then the other one senses brass from steel.
So another aspect of our robot was to sort the ball bearings based on size. So there were two different sizes. There was the small ball bearings, which was 1/4 of an inch, and there was the bigger ball bearings, which was 1/2 an inch. When we were originally thinking of a design, we had two things in mind. One, that a physical sorting mechanism would be the easiest thing to build, and that we should utilize gravity to help us get the ball bearings through the size sorting. And using these ideas, we came up with 3 different possible solutions. So first idea was a Lego sorter, which was essentially different plates stacked on top of each other with different size holes in each plate, so that as the balls were going down, it would sort by size. Another one was a size drop, which essentially was like a ramp with different drops based on like size that the balls could go through. And then our third solution was a gate tunnel, which was essentially just a smaller, more efficient version of the size drops, and we ended up choosing that as our solution.
So the first side of the part of the sorting system is the intake, and basically this is how the ball bearings enter. There's a bunch of restrictions on it. One of them being that the hopper has to be 1 inch from the ground. And for this, we added a hopper system, and we have some photos of that later. Then elevation, how are we gonna take the ball bearings that start at the bottom of the robot and bring it to the top? So we had a few ideas for this, and we ended up going with the Archimedes screw over the elevator and the conveyor belt.
And next was the sorting path. So the question we were addressing is how can we separate the ball bearings after the material has already been identified. So in this, we were considering a pinball system would basically push the bearings into its respective tunnel or path, and this would be accomplished either by using solenoids or servos, and we decided to go with servos. And now tunnels, how will the ball bearings land into their stations? So our biggest priority was keeping it flexible, and so we are using plastic tubing.
So for transportation, we had a couple different ideas. So our first idea was to use an Archimedes screw that was at an angle to make sure that the ball bearings were going to their places inside of the tubing that would transport throughout the system. An Archimedes screw, if you don't know, is basically just a screw that rotates and then it kind of pushes the ball bearings along. So we were thinking about that, but ultimately we decided not to do that, and we instead are just going to use gravity and tubes to make that work. We also have a system that's essentially going to have a flipper, and then there are sections. So when it goes through the tubing, it's going to have, it'll approach a sensor area, and then once the sensors read, it'll direct it into a certain, compartment with the flippers. And we have a little video of how the flippers work if you want to play that.
So yeah, just to recap, so we essentially had 2 Archimedes screws. We were going to use one as in the intake and one along our sorting path. And so for this, originally we were going to have the Archimedes screw at an angle. So you can kind of see it's in the picture, it's angled, and this is because we believed in order to move the screws along the path and not have them just roll down the screw and go past. Like, we did some testing and we found that you need about like a 20-degree angle in order for that to work. And we need vertical height, right? Because you're starting on the bottom by requirements of the competition, and you want to utilize the 20 by 20 by 20 space that you have to do your sorting. So we were going to use this angle design. We changed that, but we'll get a little more of that later. And then the second one was because one of our other problems that we had to solve is we need the balls to be in a single file line spaced out. So we thought if we could control the speed that each one is going through for every rotation of the screw, depending on that distance, we could get the right spacing between the screws so that we could sense what type of material it is and adjust the path accordingly without having overlap, like you have 2 balls being sensed at the same time. And so if something is brass but it really thinks it's plastic, right, you want to split that up. Okay.
So the packaging stations are the last step of the sorting machine, and just a reminder that there are 6 different types of ball bearings, so we're going to have 6 different stations. So depending on material and size, and the stations must hold 40 ball bearings, and they should be easily removable from the robot. So just with these, we were able to design a way for the packaging stations to be removable, and stations must also be an inch off the ground, something we were struggling with because it has to be on the base of our robot. So some ideas we had was a drawer system that might, we think a drawer system might be sufficient because there's 2 different sizes of boxes and we think they are easy to move in and out. And the placement of boxes should be minimized for tunnel and hopper spacing because we have a lot of other stuff on the robot, such as the things I mentioned. So spacing is really important and we have to take that into account.
So we had a lot of ideas, so we had a faculty advisor, Professor Twyman, shout out, Professor Twyman. So during these faculty advisor meetings, we discussed our ideas, and we had discussions of our mechanism ideas. And one big conclusion that we came from these meetings was size or materials first. And we concluded that we wanted to do size first, so because it would be easier to travel through tunnels. And we also talked a lot about team structure and how we would divide up the work, and how we would divide up the sub-teams. One of the sub-teams we made that played an integral part was the integration team. That basically put all the parts together.
Okay, so this is just a general overview of our robot. So to kind of recap and say some new things. We start with an intake or a hopper. So basically the ball bearings go through the hopper and then they get brought up by the Archimedes screw all the way to the size sorter. And the size sorter, splits it up, and then those 2 sizes go through another system where it gets sensed by the sensors and gets sorted one more time before going to the outtake and packaging system.
So these are some pictures of our initial prototypes. This is our size sorting one. If you look on the very right, there's a prototype of the gate tunnel that we originally did for size sorting. then these are some prototypes, our initial prototypes of our Archimedes screw. We have the CAD ones and also the actual physical prototype.
So that was our fall semester. We did a lot of brainstorming, and now moving into spring semester, we are more so into finalizing design and getting some stuff put together. So here's some of our final subsystems and design components that we've decided on after all the brainstorming before. So we start with our intake, and there's two pictures here. There's one, it's a CAD model, and two, it's sort of a visual representation of how it works. So before, in previous pictures, we had shown an angled Archimedes screw because we thought, we have to have it at an angle so that the balls don't roll down. We also realized that if you put a wall against it, pressing up against it, that the ball bearings can be lifted vertically. So then the challenge is, how do you do that for both ball bearing types, right? Because there's a very specific and accurate pinpointed measurement between the wall and the screw that fits for each size, 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch. So if you just adjusted it for the 1/2 inch size ball bearings, then the 1/4 inch ones would fall off. So what we ended up having to do is, it's hard to kind of see, but there's two little pockets within the wall, so that the first pocket catches the 1/2 inch size, and then there's a smaller pocket that catches the 1/4 inches. And if you can't see, there's 3 ball bearings being lifted up in that picture.
So after the process, Gideon just explained, the ball bearings run over this path. So the 1/4 inch bearings fall through the cutout, while the 1/2 inch ball bearings are able to just slide on top.
Okay, so now we get into material sorting, which is where the sensors come into play. So basically, the idea that we came up with is there's going to be a vertical queue for the ball bearings. So they'll kind of all line up vertically, and the one at the bottom is going to have a lot of sensors aimed at it, the sensors that we need, and then there will also be a solenoid aimed at it. And what happens is, as soon as the reading is taken and it knows what kind of ball bearing it is, the solenoid is going to punch it out of that bottom spot in the line, and the rest of them are going to fall down. And then that ball bearing can continue on and go through the tunnels previously described and be oriented into the correct bin.
And for the actual model, there's just 2 little mounting places. So we have on each side the sensors, right? We have our inductive proximity sensor and Hall effect sensor. And then, so the tricky part though is that the size of the sensor heads is, they're significantly large. So for the 1/2 inch bearings, it's okay because you can just have them directly pointed at it and you can only get one reading at a time. But for the 1/4 inch bearings, if you just had them directly mesh with the sensor, you can pick up 3 or 4 readings at a time. And additionally, the tricky part with the crankshaft position sensor is that it has a biasing magnet within it. So it senses magnetic field, but that also means that it's magnetic, and so the steel balls are especially the 1/4 inch ones, get stuck on the sensor. So we had to cleverly position the solenoid so that it can push it off, and also so that you can get a reading on both edges, because they have to be essentially touching the sensor to read. Oh yeah.
So one of our sensors, for example, is 3/4 inch is the sensor head, and for the 1/4 inch ball bearings, that can pick up 3 of them at once. So that was an issue we had to think about. So what we did is we decided to position some of the sensors basically under the ground, so that only a 1/4 inch of that would be exposed to the ball bearings.
I'm Okay, so this is kind of the tubing itself. This is a photo of it. It's surgical tubing that we're using right now. And kind of that takes us into all the different subsystems and into packaging.
So for coding our sensors and our inputs and outputs, we used Arduino as our software.
Hello? we used Arduino for our software. So basically, we have the two sensors as inputs and the servos and the solenoids as outputs. And both the sensors are active low. So that means when both of the sensors are off, which is high, none of the servos will turn on, but the solenoid will punch. And this is the plastic route on the three-way tunnel, and that's just the neutral pathway, which is just straight. And if one of the sensors is on plastic versus metal, that's the inductive. That means only the left servo will turn on, which means that the ball bearing would be, guided to the left by the servo. And if the metal is chrome, the left servo will be off and the right servo will be on, and that'll guide it to the third pathway.
So these are some pictures of us just building the frame of our robot recently. And then on the right's a picture of setup of our sensors connected to the Arduino and then the breadboard. And then these are just some models of our hopper and our mounting for it.
And then we also have a sort of rough assembly of everything, just as a visual to show how it works. Not everything is on there, and like the mounting isn't really included, but it's just sort of a spatial view for anyone curious.
So this is the remaining work that we still have to do for our competition next week. Even though all our major components are done, we still have to finish mounting everything. We need to do a lot of test runs with sensors and just the whole thing in general, and we also have to transport to the competition.
So these are our main takeaways. So some of the skills that we learned, we spent a lot of time on CAD, especially during prototyping, so we had a lot of time to kind of explore that. We also had a chance to learn Arduino integration. Since we did have a lot of different sensors and servos, we kind of learned how to add those to the Arduino and then code. And then also we spent a lot of time with laser cutting and 3D printing that goes with the CAD. We used a lot of laser cutting for the size sorting, and then we used 3D printing for the pathways. And then we also, when using Arduino, we decided to we wanted to find a source that would be easy to collab on coding, and we found that GitHub was really useful for that. So we had a chance to kind of learn about Git commands and repositories. And then we also had a chance to learn about the I2C, the serial bus communication, which basically allows sensors to talk to each other on the Arduino. And then we also had spent a lot of time trying to work on an agile design. And then some lessons we needed to that we learned was that for one, as a team we need to be flexible. Since we do have so many people, not everyone can show up to every meeting. So just showing up when you can and being there. And then also having a concrete timeline is really important. I feel like we pushed a lot of stuff to the last minute, and now we're kind of scrambling to get everything together. So just having a set deadline helps us get things done in a timely manner. And then also, planning for system integration early on is really important. I feel like at the beginning we spent a lot of time just each individual part prototyping it, and we didn't really think about how it would all go together, so it's like a later thing now we're trying to figure all that out. And some of the challenges we had, a really big one was funding and material costs. So we had to look for material that was cost effective. And then also, when we did order the materials, there was a lot of shipping delays, so we didn't really get a chance to really start building until around the springtime. And then travel plans, that goes into the funding, there was a lot of issues with that as well. But some of the highlights we had, there was the VT Science Festival. It was really fun talking to kids and just talking about our design team. We also did Secret Santa during December, which was fun. And then one of the things for the competition that we could do was make a competition video. So just vlogging for that was also really fun. And then this is our competition video. Any questions? Thank you.
I had a question on the started, I think it was like a quarter inch, like it was for this quarter inch ball bearings. So was it did you see like a difference in the recognition pattern when you decrease the sensor surface area? Or was it constant?
It's constant throughout, but yeah, it's just what we will say though is when you would decrease the surface area of the magnetic sensor, it definitely you had to get it really perfect because if you went down too much, it doesn't sense the magnetic field because the whole sensor head, only about half of it or a quarter of it is actually where it can sense things like that, and it's a little bit inconsistent. So you had to it was just kind of a rinse and repeat, many prints to kind of check where what positioning would work, and you can still sense something, but also only sense one thing at a time.
That makes sense.
So you mentioned earlier that you were focusing on sorting size first, but with the vertical material sorter, you have both sizes in there. So I guess did you end up switching that around, or how did that work out?
So the vertical material sorter is after it's split, so there's actually two of them, one for each size.
Did you guys have to design around the balls getting jammed somehow?
Yeah.
The three-way tunnel system, especially if you're worried about them getting jammed. So for the half inch, the width of the tunnel is 0.7, so there's no way to get stuck horizontal. And same thing for the quarter inch three-way tunnel, it's 0.375, so it's never gonna get more than 1.5.
And we also did some additional testing. So for anything where there might be a jam point, we found that if you make it 3 diameters across, then it's minimal to no jamming. Whereas if you had the space only about as wide as 2 diameters, yeah, it jams, and that is a big problem. So yeah, to get around that, we had to increase it to about 3. Yeah.
I was curious, competition conditions, are they scoring you guys off of, I'm assuming this is a scoring system, or is it based on accuracy? Is it based on the time for you to do it? What are the conditions when you get there? What are they going to be looking at?
All of the above, yeah. So they have a they have a formula based on the time. The factors are the time. They give you 10 minutes to do it, but the faster you can sort everything, the better. And then accuracy.
So one doesn't triumph the other. You have to be both efficient and accurate in order to compete.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, congratulations, Team Terra. All right, I would like to shout out also
Terra's advisors, Sophie, India, and Helen. And by the way, before I forget, I forgot to shout out Team Astra's advisors, which is Bella, Lana, and Ramsey. So please give a round of applause for both teams' advisors. Last but certainly not least, we have Team Juvo, and Team Juvo actually qualified for the Resna competition finals this year. So we'll see what they have to bring to the table.
Just hold it. Hold it. Yeah.
Hi everyone, we're Team Juvo. My name's Delara, and today we'll be sharing with you all what we've accomplished this year, a bit about the competition we're participating in, and other projects we've been working on up until this point. Okay, just before we get started, I'll have the team introduce themselves. I'm Alexis Hamilton.
I'm Mary Yo.
I'm Michael Wisman.
I'm Lily Quach. I'm Diane Barahona Bonilla.
I'm Braxton McDaniel.
So yeah, I'll share a bit about our team. For those who don't know, Juvo is mainly a biomedical engineering focused team, and we work towards the development of medical devices for people with disabilities and diseases. And despite being biomedical engineering focused, our team consists of a variety of backgrounds and skill sets that we use towards these medical device projects. So our primary goal in the beginning of the year was to create a medical device for Resna's Student Design Challenge, and it's an international competition that allows students to showcase and create innovative devices and technologies for people with medical disabilities. And the top 5 teams are chosen to go to Chicago as the finalist round in the Resna conference. And the winning teams get cash prizes and a chance to speak with other international industries. So now we'll have Braxton talk about our Resna project.
So it started obviously with the fall development.
Sorry. Mira. Click the right arrow. Oh.
So of course we have to start by researching and deciding on what we wanted to do. So we decided to work on a device that works with osteoarthritis. Osteoarthritis affects particularly older populations as their joints over time break down. And it's a it's a bad condition, right? You lose a lot of musculoskeletal strength in your hands, your fingers, and overall, it sucks. Sorry about that. So another problem is that because they affect primarily older populations, these older populations have hobbies like knitting or embroidery, and they're unable to really do them because of the lack of musculoskeletal strength in that finger and that hand area. So especially knitting is a big one that a lot of people do, and they can't really do anything about it besides take a couple Advils, which isn't particularly effective. So we decided to work on a hand splint tailored for people with... Hello? Okay. We're working on a hand splint tailored for people... We're working on a hand splint tailored for individuals who enjoy knitting but also have that osteoarthritic condition leading to a lack of musculoskeletal strength. One of the big goals is that they need to be able to hold the needles, still, strength. They have to have a lot of tension in their finger, which also is another problem, right? If you can't really hold your finger without being in pain, you're not going to be able to properly hold your splint or your yarn. So overall, that's the game plan for what we're doing.
Alright, so our device, after brainstorming, we decided to include a compression glove because compression is something that's really helpful, especially with inflammatory joints that happen in arthritis. We also have a grip for the needle that will make it so that less fine motor movement is needed for them to grasp the knitting equipment. We also have a finger splint that helps keep the pointer finger straight, and that's really useful and necessary for maintaining tension in the yarn, which is a big thing in creating even stitches in knitting. And that splint that we made also comes with a hook that additionally helps create tension without having to wind the yarn around your finger or adjust constantly. So those are the main elements of our design. We also met with individuals at the Blacksburg Community Center that have a knitting group, and a lot of these women were elderly and some had arthritis, and that's where we really had confirmation that we were on the right track because one lady with arthritis who knit said she had to take 2 Tylenols every day, but she did because she loved it so much. So we really, they also talked about compression and how that was a big way they helped mitigate their pain. So that was a way we directed our focus to our current design.
So our plan of attack for our first prototype was to repurpose a pencil grip in order to hold the knitting needle. We found out this did not work. There was way too much friction between the knitting needle and the grip, and it was also just really difficult to work with. So we shifted our mindset. We started 3D printing things to hold the knitting needles, and then we finally concluded that our Lego hand-looking design was the best option for us. And so once we had that design down, we decided to print a lot. We made lots of tiny little revisions to our prototype in order to make it perfect and fit Mira's fingers, since she was the one that was knitting for us.
We tried to scan my finger with a 3D printer scanner so that we could like manually fit the CAD onto a 3D model of my finger. After hours in the prototyping lab trying to scan it, we decided that this did not work, so we just had to work with the best options that we had available, and this is kind of when we also thought about focusing with more flexible materials like TPU.
So that wraps up the fall development of our project, and now I'll go ahead and discuss the spring development for our Knit Pro device. So we finally submitted our device to Resna on February 21st, along with a design brief and a video demonstration of our product, which was created by Mira, and it just shows how our product works to the Resna judges, and I can play a little snippet.
Hello, we are Team Juvo from Archimedes at Virginia Tech, and today we're presenting our assistive knitting device for those with arthritis.
But yeah, here's the product. Mira
This
is just
prototype
demonstrating
is
how
anchored
the
onto
knitting needles
compression
work
gloves
and how
to provide
the
extra support
grips
and
attach
comfort
to
for the
needles,
user.
and as well
Additionally,
as the compression
the
gloves
magnets
themselves.
attached to the glove allow for secure connection,
And they're magnetized
but
as
easy
well.
removal of different attachments for other uses, such as opening jars.
So yeah, that's a little snippet of that.
Then also in the spring semester, we joined ID Pro. So Diane, Micah, and myself were the only ones able to be enrolled in ID Pro. But ID Pro just began when we submitted the Knit Pro to the ResNet competition, so we decided that we would shift gears into a project that we were really interested in. And last year, the Juvo team with Archimedes decided to focus their project on the idea of controlling a motorized wheelchair without the physical interaction. And since Archimedes was picked up by ID Pro, we decided that this was a great place to start. And then Diane will speak a little bit about our BCI project.
Think about how you move throughout the day. Getting dressed, grabbing a snack, or even just starting to talk to somebody. Now imagine not being able to do these things on your own. For many people with limited mobility, this is the reality. Tasks that are socially seen as easy can be difficult for others to perform without help, or even acquiring physical movement. However, what if there was a way to perform tasks without help or the need for movement at all? Assistive technology is known for its futuristic concepts, but we are closer to brainwave-driven technology than we think. Our project aims to develop a proof of concept demonstration of BCI technology that helps people control their motor functions with just brain signals alone. So our technology focuses on using headsets that detects brain signals that then translate to silver motor activation. We aim to help empower those regain their independence without the need for surgery or physical movement at all. So we started off with planning out what we wanted our semester to look like. So we were deciding between either continuing with our BCI project that Juvo originally started last year, or continuing developing our Knit Pro device. But ultimately, we decided to continue with our BCI project because our resident competition was sooner than ID Pro lasted. So we collected our materials. We had a BCI helmet that Jungmin provided, and we were able to configure the helmet to read our brainwave data. And then in the picture, you can see the helmet that we used.
Similar to what Infinitum was using, we're specifically targeting electroencephalogram signals across the brain, which is essentially just like very small microvoltages that exist along your scalp because your brain produces electrical signals and your scalp helps conduct part of those. So I'm going to go back for a second, using these blue electrodes, they essentially sit on the scalp and are sensitive enough to read those initial signals. So unfortunately, one of the biggest challenges we had was actually collecting the voltage values that were across the scalp membrane. And that's a two-parter. One, they're very small voltage values, so they don't exactly come out to very clean numbers. As you can see on the far right, the software we were using, which was OpenBCI's custom GUI interface, it collected it into everything into a single column with 80,000 rows of data because it was running at a 250 hertz cycle.
So it was giving us a lot of information, but unfortunately not a lot we could do without some major modifications to how it was calculating, which is where our next step was trying to actually write a program ourselves that would help us collect the data instead of using this proprietary product. So that's when we reached this point where we were like, hey, we need some sort of leap off to get to that point. So we met initially with Gray UR's, Dr. David Gray's OpenBCI team, who conveniently was at a very similar point to us. And we were able to bounce off ideas from each other on what the next step towards, making sense of these very erratic and small values. As well, we met with our faculty advisor, Dr. Walway, who helped us a lot with resource management, getting a lot of our smaller components for the project, as well as helping with Resna as well, since we passed on and had to deal with traveling to Chicago. And as well as specifically since me, Lily, and Diane are the only official members, we did pull a lot from our other Juvo members as well to help. Specifically Mira and Delara helped a lot with some of the more niche technical knowledge that none of us really had developed yet. Specifically, that helped a lot with Python and C++.
So creating that code took a lot longer than we thought, but we are now able to, we created our own code outside of BrainFlow, and now we're able to collect live data, and it's a huge accomplishment for us.
So that day, we finally got our helmet to work, and it was really exciting, especially since it took forever. In the picture, you can see all, I think, is it 8 channels?
It's 8 channels that are duplicated, because it's initially meant to run off 16, but yes.
Yeah, okay, 8 channels that are duplicated. Not all of them were supposed to run. The thing is, at this point in time, we did not have our ear clips that were able to attract the noise off the helmet, since the helmet is so sensitive. So all of them are active or moving. I was raising my hand, and the helmet was reading that. This is a very exciting day for us. We were, I think, just geeking out for an hour.
Yeah, so we have some remaining work for the Knit Pro, obviously, because, we're going to the finals for Resna in Chicago.
So on April 1st, April Fools, we found out that we were finalists, and I remember seeing the email, and I was like, this is not funny, guys. This is honestly, it's not funny at all. But turns out it was real. So the conference is from May 13th through May 15th. So Lily and I will be representing our team, since not all of us were able to go due to funding. So May 12th we'll arrive in Chicago, and then on May 13th we'll have our in-person presentation to judges and conduct a demo for the SDC people, and they'll follow us by Q&A. On May 14th, we're going to have the developer showcase, which is our opportunity to present in front of 2,000 attendees at Rehab Week, which is going to be attended by many organizations across the world. So we're very excited about that. And then on May 15th, hopefully, if we place, we'll be awarded something in the top 3. When we place, sorry.
Okay, so our next plans for our device is to print it in a more flexible resin. We haven't been able to do that yet because of setbacks, but that's our next plan before we go to this conference. And then also going back to this community center and having the people there test our prototype and see if it truly works.
So yeah, like Alexa said, we're just finalizing our NIPRO device, and we're just specifically adjusting the splint so it fits Diane's finger, because she's going to be the one mainly demonstrating our product at the Resna conference. And we also have to finish creating our final presentation that will be shown at the Resna conference, and I'll detail more things about the NIPRO device itself.
So as for our remaining work in ID Pro, so far we were only able to get the helmet to work to detect brain signals. So right now we're working between connecting the code of the BCI to an Arduino servo motor. So our process for this is data acquisition in Python. So we're going to use OpenBCI, GUI, or Python SDK to collect real-time EEG signals from the headset, which we've already done. And then we're going to do signal processing and event detection, which means implementing our custom Python code that we're still working on to detect specific brain patterns. And then this is the big part, which is serial communication with the Arduino. So we want the headset to send commands from Python to Arduino Pi serial library over USB. This is not finalized yet, but this is what we're thinking of doing and we're still working on. And then the final product is the servo motor receives serial data and then translate it into real-time movements. So for example, if the brainwave, the headset detects that I'm, let's say I'm raising my hand, then we're gonna have like a stick figure that also raises its hand. And that will be powered by the servo motor.
The showcase for ID Pro is on April 30th, so we're hopeful that we'll have a connection between the code and Arduino. And in preparation for this, we're finalizing our poster and elevator pitch that will be presented at the showcase.
As well as that, we'll have a sort of demonstration table where we'll have the helmet presented for people to look at, as well as printed out specific sections of the helmet, since specifically there's 2 target locations we're looking at, which is the C3 and C4 on the head, which are most directly tied with motor function and are luckily pretty close to the edge of the skull membrane. So we're trying to show essentially that these are the 2 target channels we're trying to look at, as well as just better visuals for people to see. And after the showcase, we will work on our final report and individual portfolios from what we've learned through the ID Pro class.
Yeah, so like all the other teams, we have a couple key takeaways. So obviously we learned a lot of skills over the time, ranging from Python, C++, Arduino, and Raspberry Pi. Not everyone came in with coding experience, like myself, so it was an important skill to learn. We also learned CAD skills. Some of us, like me again, did not know how to CAD, so also had to learn that. And then we also learned how to use things like Excel spreadsheets and general presenting communication.
Yes, we had a few lessons learned. Some were funnier than others. The one that we learned is that magnets like to shatter very explosively. I think the advisors had a good laugh at us that time. We also learned time management is important because it takes a lot longer to print things because of queues, especially if we want specific materials, even though Kevin has been a huge help. Thank you, Kevin. And then we also learned that teamwork does truly make the dream work.
All right, we're going to conclude with our notable challenges and moments. First of all, as we mentioned, we had to create a ton of iterations of our prototype and just tweak really small things in order to make it perfect. Next, we have printing delays, as Mira mentioned, lots of 3D printing, which means lots of waiting. And then lastly, we have working around our busy freshman schedules because we all were trying to do everything and we could not meet every week.
Another issue that we ran into is that Mira is actually the only person that knows how to knit, so it was really difficult for all of us to understand the fine motor movements needed to knit. But we all did a lot of researching, and Mira did teach all of us. And Diane actually got to a point where she does know how to knit, so that's really helpful. And then we also heard back from ResNow on April 1st, and that only gave us a month to finalize our Knit Pro and create a presentation for the conference. And then another issue is that ResNow only covers 2 people to attend this conference, so due to limited funding, the rest of our team is unfortunately unable to attend the conference. And then that's it. Thank you.
All right, any questions?
So does the final prototype include, okay, does it include the compression glove you're showing in the beginning, or is it going to be the splint that you showed at the end?
It's actually going to be both because the compression glove, our design is kind of a 2-part thing. We have the splint, and then we also have that in tandem with compression gloves with a grip for the knitting needles on them. So that's our full design.
Do you have to adjust the gloves and the splint in any way from like going from yours to Diane's hand? Well, I was thinking for the splint, yes, but like how do you have to adjust it for Diane's hand?
For the splint, I think we had like the diameter of the splint specifically adjusted to my finger, and we have to specifically adjust it to her finger, although using flexible material is going to help a lot with transferring from person to person. I believe for the compression gloves, it wasn't that difficult because those are usually built for like a diverse range of hands. So it's just about getting the sizing correct. Yes.
Yeah. Just a quick question. Maybe I missed this during the presentation. You mentioned multiple components
it's supposed to be used as one device. You could choose which, if you want to only use one of the parts, they are supposed to work cohesively, but it could also be, if you don't really need the compression and you just want the splint, you could have the splint. So it's kind of meant at its heart to be an interchangeable kind of way to help people with arthritis do tasks that they want to do without pain. Yeah.
It wasn't clear exactly what part of the finger the splint is supposed to go on, but I'm just curious, have you asked any of the reps at the community center, like, is it comfortable for someone that has arthritis? I guess I could see there being too far end of the compression spectrum where it's not comfortable anymore. So have you checked into that?
Yeah, we haven't been able to go back and like specifically try it out with them, but they definitely told us that using more flexible material was good, and we also based this splint off of splints that are currently used for arthritis, because that's a main huge thing in arthritis is keeping fingers straight. So there's a lot of splints that are just in the industry that are used to keep various fingers straight. So we based it off of that first, and then are tailoring our material to what they gave us feedback on, which was more of a flexible material.
Follow-up question at the end. Does the splint give you the tension you need for knitting?
So for arthritis, for knitting, it's really important. Usually most people use their pointer fingers to wrap the yarn around and hold tension so that they can knit, because without tension, it's really hard. It takes a lot of fine motor movement to manipulate the yarn. So when we have this splint keeps the pointer finger straight foremost, and so they don't have to have the energy of like having to fight to keep their fingers straight, and that can cause stiffness and a lot of strain. But what helps keep the tension the most is actually a hook on the splint that is modeled after commonly used, like they call them like crochet or knit rings that people use that don't have arthritis to hold tension and make it a little easier. So we kind of combine the two ideas to make a splint that helps people with arthritis, but it also helps hold the tension in a more conventional way that many people use. Thank you.
I have a question about time management. So y'all were running two projects simultaneously with a large team. Do you have any insights on how to do that?
Definitely divide and conquer. Some of us had skills and interests in certain places more than others. So like some of the people that aren't in ID Pro didn't have as much of like a biomedical and like brainwave interest. And so people kind of just divided and conquered. We all worked together. We also had a lot of our design like somewhat finalized by the end of fall semester. And then we just had like small tweaks and iterations to make in spring. So we were kind of able to handle them both because we could put a lot more attention towards doing something new and then just making revisions of something that we already had.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. All right. That concludes the presentations once again. Thank you guys all so much for listening to these presentations, and congratulations to all teams. Another round of applause, please. Moving on, we're going to kind of get into a bit of fun stuff and election stuff. We're going to try to make this as quick as possible so that you guys can get to other things in your day. We're going to start off with the fun stuff. So Grant, you're up first.
Okay, we have Archimedes merch. Yes, rejoice. Oh my god. Okay. Yeah, I hope you like it. It's pretty cool. So if you want one, just scan that thing. I'll also send the link in the Discord.
We'll post this entire presentation in the Discord.
Yeah, there's also a question on that form that asks you what team you're on, and that team logo will appear like underneath Archimedes. So, yeah.
Awesome.
That's it.
Thank you, Grant.
Hey, Grant.
All right, so now we're getting in. You guys have probably all heard about sniping. Faculty advisors, if you've not, we will tell you a bit about it right now. Basically, we try to discreetly take pictures of other Archimedes members and tally that out into whoever into a final score. Basically, the more people you snipe, the higher your score. and the loser, the person that gets sniped the most, has to pay for the winner, the person that gets the most snipes dinner at the end of the semester. So right now, unfortunately, I'm currently on track to pay for Adi's dinner. But anyway, here is the Hall of Fame, which are the people with most snipes. In third place, we have Bella with 84. In second place, Diane with 86. And in first place, well, Adi, but this is crazy. He has 150 snipes. So good job, Adi. Here are the rest of the honorable mentions. Indu, Miso, Jashi, Nidhi, Sophie, Micah, and Lana. All right. Hall of Shame. I guess I have to go through this, right? We'll start off with the honorable mentions. Nidhi, Lana, Helen, Byron, Akanksha, Micah, Adi. You guys have to do better. Sophie, you have 58 snipes against you. You really have to do better. Indu, you have 60. You need to do really, really better. And then for me, I have 61. I don't need to do better. But, all right. This is one tradition of Archimedes that we kind of incorporated from Astra from last year, and we found that it's been extremely beneficial to teams having fun and team bonding, even when they're not necessarily in a GBM or when they're actively with each other. Next up, we have some more sniping stats. Where the highest KD is Diane with 7.82. That means she gets 7.82 snipes per every time she gets sniped. Samhita is second with 6 exact, and Adi is third with 3.85. Fourth and fifth place are Jashi and Bella with 3.53 and 3 respectively. And then last but not least, we have like a team-based snipe count, and leadership is crushing it. Go us! We've sniped 412 people. Honestly, most of that is us as well. But we've just been sniping ourselves. But that's fine as well, right? Next up, we have Astra with 282. Congratulations to Adi and everybody else. And then in third place, we have Juvo with 172. And then the teams that need to pick up the slack are Terra and Infinitum, especially Infinitum. Yeah. All right, and so that comes out to a grand total of 1,096 snipes for the entire year. And to add drama for this one last month of Archimedes for this year, we're gonna turn off all the leaderboards. So you will no longer be able to see who's in the lead and who's in the lead for each of the categories. And we'll reveal final results at our potluck. Hopefully this adds a bit more fun, a bit more intensity, a bit more drama, and hopefully I don't have to pay for Adi's dinner by the end of this. All right. One more thing that we do that's pretty fun is we have emojis, usually of leadership, but also sometimes of members. I think some members are probably trying to bury their face in their hands right now, because some of these are pretty funny. Okay, so right off the bat, we have Riley from Archimedes, Riley gooping. This was after Adi revealed his April Fool's Day joke about not being able to go to the MPL. Next up, we have Ramsey dead. I don't know what I did, but it was probably me. I did something and he's just on the ground now. We also have me happy. That was probably because Ramsey died. I'm kidding. And then Grant Slay. Another one of me, Kevin at night. This is me at 1 a.m. at our engineering laboratory. I was really, really tired. And so I looked very, very depressed. Next up, we have Ramsey Money, or Ramsey Emotion. He has a lot of euros. I guess if you guys want funny, go talk to Ramsey. All right. Second to last, we have Bella. Bella eating. And last but not least, Braxton. You know what's happening, right? You know what's happening, right? Braxton pie. Braxton got pied 2 days ago by me and Xander, and so this is the picture. This is the result, basically. All right. Elections information. On a more serious note, I'll bring in Xander.
All right, so just a little bit about elections. I'm going to try to go a little quicker so that we can get you guys out of here. I think we ran a little bit over. But first of all, for the E-Board, you'll have to have served 2 years on Archimedes or more. We'd like to have a 1 year term limit per position. So yes, this does mean that Kevin and I will be stepping down to like a different role next year. And then officers, again, 2 years. There's no term limit on this one. And then team advisors. So this is for all of you guys. If you would like to come back to Archimedes, and I strongly encourage that you do so, if nothing else, but to improve our club. There's no term limit on advisors. We're looking for 3 sophomore advisors per team. You can only run for the current team that you're on. And then we will designate a finance representative to help us sort out some of these issues that we've been having and just ensure better communication between leadership and each of the teams. So available positions are President, Vice President, Internal and External Treasurer, as well as Secretary on the e-board. For officers, we have Publicity, Webmaster, Recruitment and Outreach, External Relations, and ProDev. And then again, 3 sophomore advisors per team, along with like senior advisors if they wish to come back. We are opening the board to everybody if they would like to come back for recruiting and interviews. I strongly encourage that you do so. It's a ton of fun to like scare the freshmen a little bit. It's a blast. I think you guys remember your prompts from like the group interview. So it's fun to see each of their reactions when you come back. And we could always use more help because we'll be interviewing probably 100+ people. So if that's something that you're interested in, even if you're not wanting to serve as like a year-long role, we strongly encourage that you come back for that at least. Organization chart, if you're interested in just seeing how the breakdown is, that is it. Yeah. And then when are we conducting interviews? So we're doing e-board and officer interviews, which you are all invited to on Saturday, May 3rd. Yes, this is right before finals week, but we're kind of running out of time. The entire organization will cast their votes for the e-board and officer positions. We will have Kyle and Grant supervise this to ensure a non-bias. Candidates, you will have to prepare a 2-minute speech. Following that, they'll step out of the room, and then we'll all discuss for 5 minutes, and then vote via Google Form. We will have a runoff election, so I don't know, if you're really interested, you can read the slides afterwards, but basically we have some contingencies on like ties and stuff.
And this is for people with more than 2 years of experience, so
yep.
This would not apply to any freshmen.
And then here are the advisor elections. So we will be reaching out to each of the teams. We're trying to schedule a meeting April 27th to May 3rd. We're looking just to find a date that works best for everybody, all your members. Who is eligible to vote? It'll be the current team members, the current team advisors, as well as all of the e-board and officers. So for example, Infinitum members, Infinitum advisor, all officers, all e-board. Yeah, again, same 2-minute speech. We will not have a discussion this time, just because they'll still be in the room. And then we're going to be voting for Google Form, and yeah, just ranked choice voting for this. Yeah, each candidate, please provide a 2-minute speech if you're interested. We would rather not have supporting aids, so don't like make a presentation or anything. It'll just be vocal. I think you all are comfortable with each other to do that. We would like to see no extra like campaigning. This just should be like you expressing your desires on how you want to help the team, and like we know you, so yeah. Please reference your prior achievements throughout this year in your speech, and be concise because 2 minutes can fly by. And then be sure to talk about what you intend to do, how you want to improve the club, and again, I mean you all know this is why you're here, but we are looking for passionate individuals. And then each candidate, no matter their rank, seniority, or previous experience, can run for at most 2 positions. This doesn't really affect the freshmen, but officer and e-board positions.
Yeah, so we have a form. When we send out the final version of the slide deck, we'll add the form. I believe AV has pinged all of you guys, though, with regards to this form. So you guys should have the form already in the Discord. But again, we'll post the slides with the added form, and we sincerely apologize for the All right.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Potluck.
Oh.
Kyle.
So, as tradition, every year at the end of the semester, of the spring semester rather, we have one last meeting, our potluck. That's where we announce all our last messages, all the results from the election, and just relax when we get to meet one last time. So it'll be on May 4th, that's what day, Sunday? 12:30 p.m.
Yep.
If you can, at the top right is a allergen form. Just make sure that you don't die when you're at the potluck. It'll be at the Blacksburg Municipal Park under Shelter 3. That's just a big, not tented, but a pavilion with a bunch of seats where we can all just hang out at. There's parks, there's tennis courts if you want to play there, or whatever else you want to do there. Here's the address. It is a potluck. You don't have to bring food, but I don't want to cook for everyone. So please bring something, even if it's just plates, napkins, utensils, or drinks, small snacks, whatever you want. And again, this is where we'll announce the final results of the elections. And that's all.
I would like to clarify that we will know unofficially the results of the elections by the end of each election session. So that means that you will know the results before the potluck, but the potluck will like basically make it official, and the potluck will be the last official meeting of our committees. Note that you do not need to prepare prepare any update slides, because as you've all seen, we've already done our final presentations. And yeah, that concludes this GBM number 7, the biggest GBM of the year. Thank you guys so much. You guys have done a fantastic job with all of your presentations. I would also like to have all of you give a big round of applause to all of your amazing advisors and e-board. So, everything you've done. And last but not least, I would also like to recognize our faculty advisors again for everything they've done this year for us. But yeah, that concludes the GBM. If you have any questions, feel free to come up to us. We'll be staying around for a few minutes afterwards. We will make the correction to the slides, add the form, and submit the final version of the slides to you guys, so you guys have it for reference. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to let us know, let your advisors know, and we'd be glad to help you out. All right, thank you so much. GBM is over.